DaFAQ!
Big K, my Itomaki are giving me the slip. What do I do?
Excellent question, Penelope. No doubt, brand new Itomaki will never slip, assuming they've been properly installed and you're using the correct pushing, twisting motion to lock the Itomaki into the tenjin. However, give those same Itomaki 8 to 10 years, the wood will eventually wear down, and this once beautiful, beautiful turn you used to enjoy now will have a little bit of a wobble. They'll still hold tension, but it just won't turn flawlessly like they did before. This is nothing you've done wrong. This happens to all shamisen. The wood just wears down. And it gets worse the older the shamisen is. Generally, shamisen you find on eBay or other auction sites will be around 20 to 50 years old, generally. Sometimes you find newer ones. Sometimes you find shamisen as old as 70, 80, even 100 years old. Now those are cool to find, but if the parts are original, they will be very worn. And so, if you bought a shamisen from an auction site or inherited one from a family member, and the Itomaki slip, this is most likely the reason why. Now, does this mean that your shamisen is ruined? Of course not. Of course not. All this means is you need a file or some sandpaper, and with a few circular passes like so, you can get your Itomaki fitting tight again and enjoy a much nicer playing experience. We're going to demonstrate with this less than new part of a shamisen. This is the kamizao, the upper section of the shamisen, which have 3 very, very worn Itomaki. As you can see, the surface is bumpy, and you can feel it too when you turn it. You can feel the turning quality in your fingers as you twist the Itomaki. The sensation I feel is kind of a grittiness as well as a bumpiness. This means that the bumps are the only point of contact between the Itomaki and the zagane. With brand new Itomaki, the surface of the peg will be completely even, smooth, level, so that you'll get 100% even contact with the peg and the zagane. And if it's bumpy, it's much less than that usually. So all we really have to do is sand down the bumpy parts so that the bumps are gone and the surface of the peg will be much more even, so you'll get more contact with the zagane. It doesn't even have to be 100%, just more than it currently is. Now, the goal is straightforward, but the process can be tricky, and if you don't have much experience, it might even be a little risky. If you oversand, it's possible that the Itomaki won't grip the zagane at all, and it won't be able to hold any tension when you tune up. However, if they're already slipping, then, why not give it a try, I say. Worst comes to worst, you can always get replacement Itomaki, or you can find a local luthier and they could just make one. It doesn't have to be ebony like this. A luthier could make one out of maple, and it's just a hexagonal, it's just a hexagonal tapered stick, really. So if you do oversand, at least there's methods to have them replaced, and why not give it a try? Now, if you don't want to risk it, that's totally fine. But at least let's learn how to do it. So come with me over to the desk area and we'll learn how. Before doing any work on the Itomaki, we want to first clean the inside of the zagane. This is to make sure that oil or residue isn't the cause of the Itomaki slipping. All we need is a piece of sandpaper. If you're cleaning the inside of brand new zagane, 1200 grit is fine just to remove oils, but if it's an older shamisen and there's possible corrosion of the metal, definitely use 800 grit. So the simplest way to do this is to wrap sandpaper around the Itomaki, like so, and then slip it into the zagane. Then just twist, and this will remove oil, corrosion, anything that might be interfering with the grippiness. After a few passes, take it out and take a look at that. As the kids say, ew. Now, just to make sure there's nothing left in the hole, put the Itomaki in a piece of cloth, push it in, give it a twist, and that'll make sure there's no metal dust or anything still in there. Next, with the sandpaper, tear off the worn side and take the clean side, wrap it around the part of the peg that touches the zagane, and give it a few twists. Just to make sure there's no oils on the peg either. Then with the cloth. Now, let's put this in the hole and see how it fits. Already, this is much tighter, and often it'll be enough for most people. But just for the educational experience, let's learn how to sand the Itomaki for a tighter fit. For the Itomaki, our tool can either be a file or a flat block with sandpaper underneath it, like so. Using 220 grit sandpaper like so is very safe, but if you want to take more wood off, you can use 120 grit. First, let's identify which part of the peg we need to shave down. Take the Itomaki and put it back in the zagane, and let's take a look. Basically, our focus area will be the part of the peg that's inside the zagane. To make it easier to know where that is when we pull the Itomaki out, put the Itomaki all the way in, and then with a pencil, press it against the peg box, the itogura, and the Itomaki, and then twist the Itomaki in order to draw a line around the Itomaki. Then place it on the other side, press it against the Itomaki and the zagane, and turn the Itomaki again. Now we can clearly see the area where we'll be sanding. All right, first let's turn the Itomaki and look for shiny spots in between these two lines. Already, there's a little shine right there. So the shiny point shows what is currently rubbing against the metal zagane. The areas that don't shine aren't in contact with the zagane. So if there's only a few shiny spots, we want to sand those down. When they're lower, the Itomaki can slide in a bit deeper, and then the parts that don't shine will suddenly be in contact with the zagane. And we know they'll be in contact when they get a shine. So let's keep turning and find the shiny spots. Okay, we got one there. That area is shiny. There's a good amount of shine on this area, and not so much here. Having shine over here and not here is probably what causes the Itomaki to turn unevenly and have that bumpy kind of feeling. Okay, we've had a general look at where the shiny areas are. Now take your file and look for the shiny spots again. And then with a circular motion, just give a light sweep to the shiny areas. Often, older hand-fitted Itomaki will have a lot of wood here that steeply slopes down. So with a file, you'll have to file or sand the steep area in order to get a smooth taper. Now for the rest, let's demonstrate with the sandpaper. Give it a little wipe. And put it back in the Itomaki and twist it around a few times. Pull it out and immediately you'll see the shiny areas are back. Again, the shiny spots are what's currently in contact with the zagane. Hopefully we'll see more shiny area than we did the first time. So now take a note of the parts that are shiny and then get your file or sandpaper again. And again, only sand the areas that are currently shiny, so that later the parts that currently aren't shiny will get in contact with the zagane and will turn shiny later. So, As you're doing these circular motions, you can also turn the Itomaki a little bit just to keep the sanding smooth and feathered, as it were. Basically, so you don't just grind down on one line, but just this kind of round, feathery motion, as it were. Okay, that's pretty good. Wipe again. Turn. That feels tighter already. Take a look. All right, so as of now, there is shiny spots around most of the peg, except here. If I want to get more coverage, I'll just sand down these shiny areas here, and then it'll get even more uniform. However, with this much area touching the Itomaki, this will be fine for most people. It's going to be very tight, and I don't think it'll really slip. But if you want more coverage, again, just sand the shiny spots, twist again, and eventually, what currently isn't shiny will eventually make contact with the zagane and produce shiny area. Remember though, it is possible to sand too much. So I would recommend that when it is tight, just stop there. If it's tight, it doesn't slip, you don't really need to do anything more. Now a final step to get the Itomaki smoother. After you got shiny spots around this area of the peg, take a piece of sandpaper like so, put it around the Itomaki, and with an even pressure, pinch the Itomaki with the sandpaper, and then, with your other hand, twist the Itomaki. Just a few times. Pull it back and forward. Now, it turns a bit smoother, and the areas that are shiny is more broader. It's not really thin streaks, but more broader areas of shine. Be very careful, because by this pinching and turning, you can accidentally sand down the worn areas more. It's really something you do after you get an even coverage around the entire peg area. So that covers this portion. It's this end of the peg that's supposed to do the real gripping of the zagane. The purpose of this end is to keep the Itomaki turning straight and true. However, if this end of the Itomaki is very worn, sometimes this will be the only part that's holding onto the zagane. That's not ideal. So the easiest fix is to take your sandpaper and wrap it around the area of the peg over here that's shiny. Again, the shiny area is what is currently in contact with the zagane. So with the sandpaper, pinch that area that's shiny, and again, twist this. Put it back in the zagane. So if you push in the Itomaki all the way and twisting feels grippy, hold the handle like so and rock it back and forth gently. If nothing moves, that means the correct end is in contact. However, if it feels grippy, but this happens, there's this wobble, that means this end is the only part currently gripping the Itomaki, and that's not ideal. So that's still happening. Take your sandpaper, pinch the end, twist it a few times, clean it off, and repeat. Eventually, you'll be able to wiggle your hand and the Itomaki will remain stable. And there we go. The previously worn Itomaki, which couldn't hold tension, now fits tight. You did it! Kyle Abbott.